Thanks so much for joining All Things Amy today. I'm making 4 loaves of rye sourdough bread. So crunchy on the outside and so soft, fluffy, and chewy on the inside. I am going to make 4 loaves, Artisan loaves of rye sourdough bread. I started out with 1.5 cups of sourdough starter and 4 cups of rye flour and 4 cups of water. I'm letting the rye flour do an autolyze for an hour. I'll add the rest of the ingredients as soon as this has the chance to do this. This helps hydrate and incorporate that water into the rye flour, so this bread will be less dense than a typical rye loaf of bread. It helps it have a little more fluffiness to it and helps it rise better because it gets very hydrated. All right, I'll be back in about an hour. So this is done with the hour autolyze. And now I'm gonna add 4 more cups of water and then 12 cups of flour. You can use bread flour and that will actually help it to get the rise we want. All I have is all-purpose today, and so that's what I'm going to add the salt before I add the rest of the flour. So I added the 4 cups of water and there are 8 teaspoons of salt. That's a lot of salt, but remember this is for 4 loaves. I just stirred it in really well to distribute that salt. Now I'll add the 12 cups of flour. 6, and then I'll stir this in, and then I'll add the rest of the flour, 6 more cups. Right. Looking really good. 6 more cups to go. The last 6 cups. So I'll stir this in and show you the texture of the dough that we want it to be at. And ready to start on its journey for some delicious bread. Okay, so this is kind of the texture. It's very sticky, but you can see that when we're ready to do stretch and folds, it will be perfect. All right, I'm gonna let this sit for 1 hour and then I'll do stretch and folds. I typically let it sit with just white flour for half an hour, but I wanna give it a little more time to incorporate the water into that flour and to develop a little bit of the gluten. Stretch and fold this. It's a big amount of dough. Just lift one corner. It's so much dough that when you do it, when it's only making 1 loaf, you can do it in like 4 turns. This will take a few more because it's so much dough. Reach under, pull and stretch, and fold. And I can already feel some development of that gluten just from that hour rest. Wonderful. 1 more, maybe 2. Feeling really good. Oh, very nice. Okay, I'm gonna cover this. I'm going to let it rest again for 1 hour and then do another set of stretches. Then an hour again. Now you see this kind of starting to rise up a bit. Isn't that beautiful? We're gonna do stretch and folds again. And when I'm making regular artisan bread, I usually just stretch and fold 2 times. But when I'm adding a whole grain like this, wheat or rye, I like to do 3 or 4 stretch and folds. So here we go. cover that and we'll wait another hour and do at least one more stretch and fold. Okay, it's been about an hour and the dough is looking so good. So it's rising up. So I'm gonna do one more stretch and fold. I won't even show it on the camera. And then I'm gonna let it just rise for 6 hours or so. I'll keep checking and I'll let you know how long it ends up taking. Okay, we've got a little dome. It's pulling away from the sides a bit. And watch it jiggle. It's ready. I'm gonna pour this out on my counter and divide it into 4 sections. And I will shape those babies and show you what we do next. That's a lot of dough for 4 Artisan loaves. You cut this recipe in a fourth to make 1. It will be 4 cups of flour. Do 1 of the cups rye and 3 of the cups flour, regular flour, all-purpose, or bread flour, and 2 cups of water and 2 teaspoons of salt. You can do the same thing with the autolyze in the beginning and everything just the same, but not so much bread. But if you want to make 4 loaves, because either you sell it or you want to give away some gifts, this is a great recipe for that. All right, I'm going to cut this into 4 sections and then shape these bad boys. If you're not used to working with wet dough like this, you can flour the surface. Find a bowl the size of a banneton or use a banneton. And then put your bread on a parchment paper and put it in the bowl. I cover it with a wet towel, but you can also use saran wrap. I'm doing this second one with no flour, but the last 2 I decided to add the flour to help it not be so sticky. So just dust flour on both sides of the dough and then it's much easier to work with. Hey guys, if you don't have one of these scraping tools, you gotta get one. They make cleanup so easy, especially with sourdough. It is so sticky and so hard to clean up. This just scrapes right off, whether it's already caked on and it's dry or it's still wet. They're all ready. So the two that I used a little flour with it. You see, it's still plenty soft and just it was easy to work with. And then these are the stickier ones that I didn't use flour. And they both work fine. I'm just so used to making artisan loaves that I don't usually flour it. I just work with the sticky and it works just fine. But if you're not used to doing it, use a little flour and it rolls up, as you saw, so much easier. Okay, I'm gonna cover these. I am going to let these go for about 2 hours before I cook them. They are ready. So I have the oven preheated to 475 and I will transfer them into the Dutch oven and then score them and then bake at 475 for 30 minutes with the lid on and 20 more minutes with the lid off. The other two loaves to come out of the oven. My kids really wanted to dig into this. Beautiful open crumb. It is absolutely amazing. So you'll notice it for rye, it's not quite as high as a regular white flour sourdough loaf, but it is plenty high. It is plenty high. It's not dense. It's very light and fluffy in there. Yummy, yummy, yeah. The loaves that I shaped with some flour so they're not as wet score a lot easier. Notice how easy I can score these compared to the other ones. But all of the loaves turned out equally as delicious. Minutes with the lid on and then 20 more minutes with the lid off at 475. All right, the last two loaves just came out. You can tell that the family definitely is enjoying this. Yummy, yummy. You like rye bread and you like sourdough bread, make this recipe. It was so delicious, you guys. So enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed this video. And remember, all things done with love.